we're going to kick off with two questions, which I've kind of lumped together, and it kind of follows on from a discussion we had earlier. So, Sam E. Corners, dearest Foundryman, the times they are changing. NVIDIA is not interested in PC gaming anymore. It's quite a statement. Crucial is shutting down. Apple RAM prices are now affordable. Is this the end of the dark ages of video gaming upon us? Do you see a light at the end of this scary tunnel? And can you share the good word with us, your flock, so that our hearts and minds may be at peace? Some guy person asks, AMD isn't coming out with anything to supplant the 9800 X3D in 2026. It's going to be, I think there's rumors of a 9850 X3D, but it's just a clock speed bump. Anyway, NVIDIA is at most releasing GPU refreshes with more RAM at a much higher price in 2026. We don't know the prices yet, by the way. If you want a gaming PC, is now the best time to buy with price hikes on the horizon. The rumor is that 16 gigs will cost $40 more. So if prices do go up, it doesn't seem that bad. Oliver, there's a couple of things I want to sort of go through here. I think there is very definitely a danger, perhaps, that for a couple of years at least, gaming might be sort of thrust into a sort of dark ages of sorts. Maybe not sort of a regression, although the RAM shortages are definitely concerning, but more to the fact that for various reasons, including the expense of new process nodes, we're probably not going to be seeing much advancement in the way of silicon. Maybe we'll see something happening nicely with CPUs in 2026, but I'm not expecting much from graphics. Obviously, memory constraints are concerning. Where do you see this going? I mean, do you think it is going to be the case that we're kind of going to be stuck where we are for a couple of years? And what about the concept of the price increases that are being talked about? Some guy person says here the rumor is that 16 gigs will cost $40 more. So if prices do go up, that doesn't seem so bad. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense for the here and now, but what about the future? I also think it's worth pointing out that the extreme price hikes that we've kind of seen for memory are kind of like the retail market and not the sort of commodity prices that are negotiated. But even so, the direction of travel is only in one direction, and that's up, right?
Yeah, I would say also that $40, that's a bill of material increase. So you don't know exactly, if people are trying to preserve their relative margins, that could mean a $60 increase or a $80 increase. Who knows exactly what it would look like in the final product. You're not paying for the bill of materials, you're paying the retail price. That could be a considerably different proposition. But I think in general, there's definitely a lot of stasis with architectures. There's a lot of stasis in GPUs. I think we're expecting next generation GPU architectures, probably not for a couple of years, probably not until 2027 at the current rate. We're probably not looking at gigantic advances in CPUs either. I mean, the 9850 X3D is rumored and the 9950 X3D 2, bit of a mouthful. Yes. I think that's also rumored with the dual 3D cache. I don't know that there's quite as good sourcing on that one as there is for the 9850 X3D, because I think the 9850 X3D just leaked from AMD's website, right? So
yes,
that's
it did.
Basically a done deal there. But I think if you have a need, definitely buy now, or even if you're thinking about 2026, buying in 2026, I think you should buy now, because I can't predict the future, but I can predict that prices are not going to be lower in 6 months than they are now. So if you intend to buy, might as well buy now. I think AMD, there's some rumors that AMD is telling their partners they might increase CPU trade costs as well, So there are some significant cost increases in other areas of the industry as well, potentially coming. If you have hardware that you like now, though, don't go out rushing to buy new stuff just because you're worried about price hikes. But if you have a genuine need for new hardware, I think now is a sensible time to buy, unless there's something on the horizon that you see coming that you really want. But at the moment, I'm not really seeing that product that would be super compelling and super price effective that you'd want to have in 2026 necessarily.
Yeah, interesting. So, John, we've actually got an extra question on this. I mean, a lot of the questions we had this week were about the whole memory and AI crunch that we're experiencing at the moment. Anna Ray asks, "Hiya, DF crew, exclamation point. Given the crazy stuff happening with RAM prices, how will PS6 and the next Xbox navigate this in the future? Will we see meager improvements to the amount of RAM next generation consoles get? And if so, how will this affect games made for the next generation, as well as PC hardware, and what amount of RAM is enough? Thanks for all the hard work. I'm loving this newfound independence. You have the content really shines because of it. Thanks for that. Yeah, interesting stuff, John. I mean, next generation. Here's the thing, right? I mean, there's this sort of crunch. If there's a demand for product, right, then I'm assuming that there will be a response to that demand, which is to say, maybe they'll create new factories to make more RAM or whatever like that. So there is going to be a response to it. It's just going to take time for this to actually happen. And I guess, if there is going to be an issue with next generation consoles, they can always just delay them.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but given the situation, they haven't actually announced anything, right? That there's no reason to accelerate the timetables in the current conditions. And given what I talked about earlier about long development cycles, it feels like it would behoove them to just wait, just extend the generation out longer, do what they can selling the current machines. And I think that'll be adequate for now. Like I don't feel the need for a PlayStation 6 anytime soon. I think most would agree that PS5 itself still feels underutilized to a degree. The only one that's possibly in a situation where they might feel the need to push their plans at the original timings is Microsoft, maybe, given that they've essentially kind of given up on Xbox Series. Like, not completely, but that's clearly the old Xbox, where they have new plans going forward in terms of what they want Xbox to become, which means they need to work on this new strategy with this new type of hardware that's going to be hitting. But again, the price issues could really create a problem for them there, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. There were rumors, Oliver, of the Magnus chip for Xbox having like 48 gigabytes of RAM. It doesn't seem likely in the current climate, but do you think next generation actually needs a lot more RAM?
I do think they need a lot more RAM, especially if you're throwing in all kinds of machine learning AI models and things like this. Could potentially be a significant increase in the RAM budgets that are needed for next generation consoles. I also just think, like, if we do have a next generation set of consoles without a big increase in RAM, conversely, that makes it harder to sell a next generation of consoles, I feel, as a huge technological increase, right? If we're still basically dealing with last generation kind of capacity constraints, that'd be a big problem. Now, I did the math on this, not that it's hard math, but I did the math on this briefly. I just looked at like what potential there could be in terms of capacities for PS6 for a Magnus chip. Like you said, Magnus, we think it's a 192-bit bus. So there you could conceivably have like 18 gigabytes or 24 gigabytes or 36 gigabytes. 36 gigabytes is what was rumored by Kepler L2, I believe. But 40 gigabytes would also be a possibility. On the PlayStation side, with a 160-bit bus, they could do 15 gigabytes, 20 gigabytes, or 30 gigabytes, with 30 gigabytes being rumored. So I think like on the PS6, if they were to go from 30 gigs, which is rumored, to 20 gigs, I think that would really suck. I wish they would just bite the bullet and give us a more expansive next generation division at the expense of cost. But I could totally see it just not being viable if indeed we're looking at the bill of materials in a year and a half or so, and RAM is like twice or three times as expensive as it is currently. If that's the situation, that's not a viable console, really, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly a lot of uncertainty going forward. And the fact that the platform holders, Microsoft, Sony, are to a certain extent, presumably kind of powerless to do too much about it. Now, I'm going to assume that there are going to be certain projects where they would have already secured the inventory that they need at certain prices that they need Hopefully, it to be. But obviously, console generations are just getting longer and longer, and these machines need to persist for longer and longer. So it's really important to get the, obviously to get those contracts sorted out for as long as possible, but also to make the machine as long, to have as much longevity as possible as well. It's going to be super, super tricky, and maybe the solution there is simply to wait. I kind of do feel as though the current generation consoles have got the fundamentals right. I mean, a lot of the issues that we had with the prior generation have been completely, I won't say completely solved, but certainly mitigated. I mean, we've got a decent enough CPU this time around. Is showing its age a bit, that's for sure. The big thing, though, was obviously the mechanical hard drive, which has been solved with the SSD. And I still think that in terms of use of the current generation, it's probably storage that is an area that still remains kind of underutilized to its fullest potential. And, GPUs scale. That's the good thing about them. They are inherently scalable. So that side of things is okay. I think, regardless, we are going to be seeing a big cross-generation situation going forward when the new consoles do arrive, which, is going to make things even trickier still in terms of, like, quote unquote, holding back gaming from everything it can be.